Admiral Hyun-woo Kim stood in the center of the massive chamber. Around him, thousands of alien beings sat in rows that went up so high he could barely see the top. Their eyes, tentacles, and sensors all pointed at him. The air felt heavy with their anger and fear. The chamber was built for giants. The ceiling stretched far above, covered in moving lights that showed star maps of the galaxy. Each seat held a different type of alien. Some looked like giant insects with clicking sounds coming from their mouths. Others were tall and thin, like walking trees. A few floated in tanks of strange-colored water. Hyun-woo wore his best Earth uniform. The blue fabric felt small and plain in this place of such grandness. Behind him stood his two companions. Dr. Yoon-ji Park held her tablet with shaking hands. She had spent years learning about these alien races. Captain Dong-min Lee kept his hand near his weapon, though they all knew it would be useless here. The Vorthak Empire leader rose from the biggest seat. Its skin was dark purple and covered in scales that caught the light. When it spoke, its voice came out like thunder from speakers all around the chamber. "Humans of Earth," the Vorthak said, "you stand accused of being a danger to all peaceful life in this galaxy." Hyun-woo felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. He had been a soldier for 30 years. He had fought in Earth's wars and led ships through space battles, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "We reject these charges," Hyun-woo said. His voice sounded tiny in the huge space. "Humanity has always sought peace with all species." A sound like angry buzzing filled the chamber. It came from thousands of aliens all talking at once in their different languages. The Vorthak leader raised one of its 4 arms and the noise stopped. "Peace?" said another voice. This one came from Arillan, whose gray skin seemed to shift and change as it spoke. "You call your actions peaceful? In 50 years you have spread to 37 star systems. You build weapons that can destroy planets. You refuse to follow our laws." Yoonji stepped forward. Her voice was steady, but Hyun-woo could see sweat on her face. "Honored members of the council," she said, "every species here expanded across the stars when they first gained that power. Humans are no different. We explore because we seek to learn and grow." "You grow too fast," hissed a snake-like alien from the middle rows. "You take what you want without asking. You fight first and talk later." "That is not true," Dong-min said. His soldier's training made his words sharp and clear. "In every conflict, humans tried to talk first. We only fought when others attacked us." The Vorthak leader's eyes glowed, brighter. "You speak of defense, but your ships carry weapons that can crack moons. Your soldiers use tactics that disturb us. You fight like you have no fear of death." Hyun-woo wanted to laugh, but he knew it would be a mistake. These aliens had lived in peace for so long that they forgot what real fighting looked like. They settled arguments with long meetings and votes. They had not seen a real war in thousands of years. "We fight to protect ourselves and our allies," Hyun-woo said. "If that disturbs you, perhaps you should ask why." Another wave of angry buzzing filled the chamber. This time it was louder and lasted longer. Some aliens stood up and shook their appendages at the 3 humans. A new voice spoke from the highest rows. It belonged to an alien that looked like a giant jellyfish floating in the air. When it talked, lights flashed under its transparent skin. "The human problem is not just military," it said. "They refuse to accept guidance. Every other species learned to work within our system. Humans demand to keep their independence." Yoon-ji stepped forward again. "We believe in cooperation, not control. We joined this council to work together, not to be ruled by others." "And that," said the Vorthak leader, "is exactly why you must go." The words hit the 3 humans like a physical blow. Hyun-woo felt the blood drain from his face. Around them, the aliens were nodding and making sounds of agreement. 50 standard years, the Vorthak continued. That is how long you have to remove all human presence from beyond your home system. Every colony, every station, every ship. If even one human remains outside the Sol system after that time, we will consider it an act of war." "You cannot be serious," Yunji said. Her voice cracked with emotion. "We have families on those worlds, children who were born among the stars. You are asking us to abandon everything we have built." "We are not asking," said the Rillan representative. "We are telling you. The vote has already been taken. It was unanimous." Dongmin's hand moved toward his weapon again, but Hyunwoo caught his wrist. The captain's face was red with anger. "You call this justice?" Dongmin said. "You exile an entire species because you fear what we might become?" "We exile you because we know what you will become," the Vorthak leader replied. "We have seen species like yours before. They spread across the galaxy like a plague. They consume everything in their path. They bring only war and suffering." Hyunwoo looked around the chamber one more time. In every alien face, he saw the same thing: fear. They were afraid of humanity not because of what humans had done, but because of what they might do. They were afraid of change, of competition, of anyone who did not think exactly like them. "We came to you in friendship," Hyunwoo said. "We shared our knowledge freely. We helped you solve problems that had puzzled you for centuries. We asked only to be treated as equals. And now you have your answer," the Vorthak leader said. "You will never be our equals because you will never be like us. You are chaos in a galaxy that has found order. You are war in a place that has found peace." The three humans stood in silence for a long moment. Around them, thousands of aliens waited to see what they would do. Hyunwoo thought about Earth, about the colonies, about the millions of humans who would have to leave their homes because of this decision. "If we refuse," he asked, "then you will face the combined fleets of 400 species," the Rillan said. "Your ships are advanced, but you are vastly outnumbered. Your entire species could be wiped out in a matter of days." Yunji was crying now, though she tried to hide it. Dongmin looked like he wanted to fight the entire galaxy by himself. Hyunwoo felt a weight settle on his shoulders that he knew he would carry for the rest of his life. 50 years, he said. 50 years, the Vorthak leader confirmed. "Use them wisely. Learn to be content with your small corner of the galaxy. Perhaps in time, when you have grown more civilized, we might reconsider." Hyunwoo knew they were lying. These aliens would never let humanity back into their perfect, ordered galaxy. They had made their choice, and now humanity would have to live with it. As the three humans walked out of the chamber, Hyunwoo heard the aliens beginning to celebrate. They thought they had solved their human problem forever. They had no idea what they had really done. They had just given humanity 50 years to become something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. Captain Sang-Ho Choi stood on the bridge of the massive transport ship, New Dawn. Through the main window, he could see dozens of other ships just like his. They stretched out in a line so long that the first ships looked like tiny dots against the stars. 3 years had passed since the aliens gave their ultimatum. Now the great exodus was in full swing. Every day, more ships arrived at the human colonies to take people home to Earth. Every day, Sang-Ho watched families say goodbye to the only homes many of them had ever known. "Captain," said his communications officer, "we have confirmation from colony ship Bright Star. They have finished loading the last families from New Sol." Sang-Ho nodded. New Sol had been one of humanity's most successful colonies. The planet had perfect weather and rich soil. Human farmers had grown food there that fed millions of people across 3-star systems. Now it would be empty, left for the aliens to claim or ignore as they pleased. "Any word from Dr. Han?" Sang-Ho asked. "She is still on the surface, sir. She says she needs another hour to finish her work." Dr. Mi-Young-Han was supposed to be helping with the evacuation. Instead, she spent her time in the colony's data centers and laboratories. She claimed she was preserving important information, but Sang-Ho suspected she was doing something more. His suspicions were confirmed when his personal communicator buzzed. It was a private message from engineer Jae-won Yoon, who was working on the planet's main industrial complex. "Sang-ho," the message said. "Tell Han to hurry up. I am almost done with my special project here. We need to leave before anyone notices what we have been doing." Sang-ho smiled grimly. He had not asked what Jae-won's special project was, and Jae-won had not told him. But Sang-ho could guess. The aliens wanted humans to leave everything behind for them to use. Jae-won was making sure that would not happen. Another message came in, this time from the planet's surface. It was Dr. Han's voice, and she sounded excited despite the sad circumstances. "Captain Choi, you need to see what I found in the university's quantum research lab. The aliens left behind some of their equipment when they established the colony monitoring station. I think I can adapt it to our needs." "Doctor, we do not have time for experiments," Sang-ho replied. "The alien inspection ships will arrive tomorrow. If they find us still here, trust me, Captain, this could change everything." Sang-ho looked out at the evacuation fleet again. Each ship carried thousands of people who had lost their homes because the aliens feared what humanity might become. Maybe Dr. Han was right. Maybe it was time to start thinking about what humanity could become. Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Mi-young Han worked frantically in the abandoned laboratory. The aliens had left behind a quantum communication device, something they used to send messages instantly across vast distances. Human scientists had been trying to build something like this for years, but they could never make it work. Now, with the aliens' own equipment in front of her, Mi-young could see where human science had gone wrong. The aliens used a completely different approach to quantum mechanics. They did not try to control quantum particles. Instead, they convinced the particles to cooperate. "Incredible," she whispered as she copied the alien data to her portable storage device. "They treat quantum physics like a conversation, not a battle." Her tablet chimed with an urgent message from Jae-won. "Mi-young, whatever you are doing, finish it fast. I just activated the final sequence. This place is going to be very unfriendly to aliens in about 6 hours. Mi-young packed her equipment quickly. As she ran toward the evacuation ship, she could see lights flickering throughout the colony's industrial district. Jae-won had spent months preparing his surprise for the aliens. Every major facility on the planet now contained hidden programs that would activate after the humans left. The programs would not hurt anyone, but they would make sure the aliens could not use human technology for their own purposes. Manufacturing plants would produce useless junk instead of useful goods. Power stations would shut down randomly. Computer systems would display error messages in languages that did not exist. It would take the aliens years to figure out what Jae-won had done, and even longer to fix it. On the transport ship, families sat in crowded passenger areas, surrounded by whatever possessions they could carry. Children asked their parents when they could go home. Parents had no answers to give them. Sang-ho walked through the ship, trying to boost morale. He stopped to talk to an elderly man named Mr. Park, who had run a successful farming operation on New Seoul for 20 years. "Captain," Mr. Park said, "my grandfather told me stories about the old days on Earth, when people had to leave their homes because of wars and disasters. He said the secret to survival was to remember that home is not a place. Home is the people you are with." "Your grandfather sounds like a wise man," Sang-ho replied. He was. He also said that sometimes, when people force you to leave, they give you the greatest gift possible. They give you the chance to become stronger than you ever thought you could be. As the transport ship pulled away from New Seoul, Sang-ho thought about Mr. Park's words. Perhaps the aliens had made a mistake. They thought they were removing a threat by sending humanity home. But what if they were actually creating a much bigger threat? The evacuation continued for 2 more years. Ship after ship arrived at human colonies, loaded with people and whatever they could carry, and then departed for Earth. The aliens watched, but did not interfere. They seemed pleased that their plan was working so smoothly. They did not know about the hidden programs Jaewon left behind. They did not know about the quantum research data Mi Young had stolen. They did not know that every human scientist, engineer, and military officer was memorizing everything they had learned about alien technology and tactics. By the end of the 5th year, the last human colony ship was approaching Earth. Captain Sang-ho stood on the bridge of his ship one final time, looking back at the stars they were leaving behind. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a message from the alien blockade fleet. They want to know our status." "Tell them we are the last ship," Sang-ho replied. "Tell them the human exodus is complete." As his ship crossed into the Sol system, Sang-ho could see the alien blockade ships taking their positions. Hundreds of massive vessels formed a wall around the entire solar system. Their weapons were pointed outward, ready to destroy any human ship that tried to leave. The aliens thought they had solved their human problem. They had forced an entire species to retreat to one small corner of the galaxy. They expected humans to stay there quietly, perhaps eventually dying out from lack of resources or simply from despair. Instead, they had just given humanity the greatest gift possible: time to prepare and a very good reason to become everything the aliens feared they might be. On Earth, in the underground laboratories that were already being built, Dr. Mi Young Han was beginning her work on quantum communication systems that would make alien technology look like stone tools. In hidden military facilities, new types of weapons were being designed based on everything humans had learned about alien weaknesses. The aliens had wanted to remove chaos from their orderly galaxy. Instead, they had just concentrated all of that chaos in one place, given it 50 years to grow, and provided it with the motivation it needed to become truly dangerous. The exodus was over. Now the real work could begin. Dr. Tae-hyun Bae stared at the quantum equations floating in the air above his desk. The holographic numbers and symbols had been his constant companions for the past 30 years. Today, something was different. Today, he thought he might finally understand what the aliens had been doing wrong. It was the year 2450, 60 years after humanity's forced return to the Sol system. The Earth had changed dramatically in that time. Underground cities stretched for miles beneath the surface. Orbital stations ringed every planet and moon. The asteroid belt buzzed with mining operations that fed the growing human population. But the most important changes were happening in laboratories like Tae-hyun's. Cut off from the galaxy, human science had exploded in directions no one had ever imagined. "Computer," Tae-hyun said, "run simulation 47832. The holographic display shifted, showing a new pattern of quantum interactions. For a moment, the equations balanced perfectly. Then, just like all the times before, they collapsed into chaos. Tae-hyun rubbed his tired eyes. He had been working on this problem since he was a young graduate student. Back then, the alien blockade was still new, and many humans believed they would eventually be allowed to return to the stars. Now, most of those optimistic people were dead of old age. A soft chime indicated someone was at his laboratory door. "Come in," he called. Admiral Sora Lim entered, still wearing her military uniform despite the late hour. She was 30 years younger than Tae-hyun, but her face already showed the stress lines of someone who carried enormous responsibility. "Any progress?" she asked. "Maybe," Tae-hyun replied. "I think I have been approaching this backward. The aliens do not control quantum particles. They ask the particles to cooperate." Sora raised an eyebrow. "You want to have a conversation with subatomic particles? Why not? We have conversations with computers, and they are just patterns of electrical signals. Quantum particles exist in multiple states at once. Maybe consciousness is not as unique as we think it is." Sora sat down in the chair across from his desk. She looked exhausted. As the head of Earth's new military doctrine, she spent her days preparing for a war that might never come, against enemies who vastly outnumbered humanity. "Tai-hyun," she said, "I need to know if your quantum communication project will work. Not in 10 years or 20 years. I need to know if it will work. In the next 5 years? Why the rush?" Sora was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because my intelligence teams have been analyzing the alien blockade patterns. They rotate their ships every 6 months. During the rotation, there are always gaps in their coverage. Small gaps, but gaps nonetheless." Tae-hyun felt his heart speed up. "You want to send ships through the gaps?" "Not ships, probes. Tiny ones, no bigger than a baseball. If your quantum communication system works, we could send thousands of them throughout the galaxy. We could finally learn what has been happening out there while we have been trapped in here." Tae-hyun turned back to his equations. Suddenly, they looked different. Not just like a scientific puzzle, but like the key to humanity's future. Across, the solar system engineer Woo-jin Nam was working on his own revolutionary project. His laboratory was hidden deep inside the asteroid Ceres, where the heavy mining equipment provided perfect cover for his experiments. Woo-jin's specialty was propulsion systems. For 60 years, human ships had been trapped in the Sol system, unable to travel faster than light without alien permission. But Woo-jin had been studying the wreckage of alien ships that humans had captured during the early contact wars. The aliens used something they called dimensional folding to travel between stars. They bent space-time like folding a piece of paper, allowing ships to step from one point to another instantly. Human scientists had never been able to replicate this technology until now. "Computer, prepare test chamber 7, Woo-jin said. In the sealed chamber, a small metal sphere sat on a platform. Woo-jin had spent 5 years building this prototype. If his calculations were correct, the sphere would fold space around itself and appear on the other side of the chamber, initiating dimensional fold in 3, 2, 1. The sphere vanished. For a moment, Woo-jin thought it had been destroyed. Then he looked at the far side of the chamber. The sphere sat on another platform, exactly where his calculations said it should be. "It worked," he whispered. Then, louder, "It actually worked." But Woo-jin's success was just the beginning. His dimensional folding technology was better than what the aliens used. Their ships could only fold space along predetermined paths, like following roads through the galaxy. Woo-jin's system could fold space in any direction, creating shortcuts that did not exist on any alien map. Meanwhile, Admiral Sora Lim was working on the most ambitious project of all, completely reimagining how humans fought wars. The aliens had called humans too aggressive, but Sora knew the truth was more complicated. Humans were not more aggressive than other species. They were more adaptable. They learned from every fight, every defeat, every victory. They changed their tactics constantly, making them impossible to predict. The aliens fought wars like they did everything else, by committee. Before any major decision, they held meetings, took votes, and made sure everyone agreed. This made them very good at avoiding conflicts, but terrible at winning them when conflicts could not be avoided. Sora's new military doctrine was designed to take advantage of this weakness. She called it the Soul Doctrine, and it was based on one simple principle: chaos beats order every time. "Lieutenant Kim," she said to her aide, "bring up the simulation of the Vorfak fleet movements." The holographic display showed a typical alien fleet formation. The ships moved in perfect geometric patterns, each one exactly where the tactical computers said it should be. It was beautiful, efficient, and completely predictable. "Now show them how we would attack," Sora said. The display changed. Human. Ships appeared from multiple directions at once, moving in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully planned. They struck at weak points in the alien formation, retreated before the aliens could respond, and then attacked again. From a completely different direction. "The aliens will try to respond logically," Sora explained to her staff. They will move their ships to defensive positions based on where they think we will attack next. But our attack patterns are designed to make logical responses work against them. The more logically they respond, the more vulnerable they become. It was psychological warfare on a massive scale. Humans would not just fight alien ships. They would fight alien minds, using the aliens' own need for order and predictability as weapons against them. As the years passed, these three projects began to come together. Tae-hyun's quantum communication breakthrough allowed instant coordination across vast distances. Woo-jin's dimensional folding technology made human ships faster and more unpredictable than anything in the galaxy. Sora's psychological warfare doctrines turned human adaptability into a devastating weapon. But perhaps the most important change was in the human population itself. The generation that remembered life among the stars was dying out. The new generation had grown up knowing only that aliens had stolen humanity's birthright. They did not remember the galaxy as a place of wonder and discovery. They remembered it as a prison that humans had been forced to escape. This new generation was harder than their parents. They were smarter, more focused, and completely dedicated to the idea that humanity deserved its place among the stars. They did not want to rejoin galactic civilization. They wanted to replace it with something better. On a cold morning in 2487, 97 years after the Exodus began, Dr. Tae-hyun Bae achieved his greatest breakthrough. His quantum communication system successfully sent a message beyond the alien blockade and received an answer. The message came back filled with data about the current state of the galaxy. What Tae-hyun learned shocked him so much that he immediately called Admiral Sora Lim and engineer Woo-jin Nam. "You need to see this," he told them. "The galaxy is falling apart." The data showed a civilization in decline. Without humanity's chaotic influence, the aliens had become even more rigid and bureaucratic. Problems that humans could have solved in days took them years to even discuss. Their technology had stopped advancing. Several species were facing extinction because they could not adapt to changing conditions. The aliens had gotten exactly what they wanted: a galaxy without human chaos. It was slowly killing them. "How long do you think they have?" Sora asked. "At this rate?" "Maybe 50 years before total collapse," Tae-hyun replied. Sora smiled grimly. "Then I think it is time to give them a choice. They can ask for our help, or they can face the consequences of what they did to us. And if they choose to fight instead?" Sora's smile became a predator's grin. "Then they will learn why they were right to fear us in the first place." Intelligence Officer Yoo-jin Ko sat in the deepest level of the Luna Intelligence Center, surrounded by screens that showed data from across the galaxy. For the past 6 months, she had been using Dr. Tae-hyun Bae's quantum communication breakthrough to spy on the alien civilizations that had exiled humanity nearly a century ago. What she found was worse than anyone had imagined. "Admiral Lim," she said into her communicator, "you need to come down here immediately and bring Admiral Kim with you." Admiral Hyun-woo. Kim was 97 years old now, one of the last survivors from the original diplomatic mission to the Galactic Council. He moved slowly with the help of a walking stick, but his mind was still sharp. When he arrived at the intelligence center with Admiral Sora Lim, his eyes immediately went to the largest display screen. "Is that the Vorthak home system?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Yoo-jin replied. "Or what is left of it." The screen showed a star system in chaos. Massive space stations hung dead in orbit around the Vorthak homeworld. Ships drifted without power between the planets. The purple-scaled aliens who had once ruled a quarter of the galaxy were now fighting a civil war that had lasted 20 years. "What happened to them?" Sora asked. Yoo-jin pulled up another display. "Food shortages. When humanity was forced to leave, we took our farming knowledge with us. The Vorthak tried to replace human agricultural experts with their own people, but they could not match human efficiency. Their food production dropped by 60%. So they are starving? Worse, they are fighting over the food that remains. 3 different Vorthak factions claim to be the legitimate government. Each one controls different food-producing planets. None of them will share with the others. Admiral Kim leaned heavily on his walking stick. In the old days, this would have been solved with a simple trade agreement. Humans would have found a way to increase food production and everyone would have benefited. The Vorthak tried that approach, sir. They held committee meetings for 5 years trying to reach a consensus. While they were talking, millions of their people died of hunger. Eugene switched to another display, this one showing the Rillan Federation. The gray-skinned shapeshifters had once been the most cunning diplomats in the galaxy. Now their worlds were ravaged by a plague that their scientists could not cure. The Rillan genetic plague started 7 years ago, Eugene explained. It attacks their ability to change shape, which is essential to their biology. Human doctors might have found a cure by now, but the Rillan medical establishment refuses to consider any treatment that was not invented by Rillans. How many have died? Sora asked. 2 billion so far. At the current rate, the entire species will be extinct within 15 years. Admiral Kim shook his head sadly. Pride. It has always been their weakness. They would rather die than admit that someone else might have a better solution. The revelations continued for hours. Eugene showed them dozens of alien species facing problems that humans could have solved easily. The crystalline hive had suffered a massive computer virus that destroyed their collective memory banks. Human programmers could have fixed it in weeks. But the crystallines insisted on using only their own technology. They had been trying to repair the damage for 12 years with no success. The aquatic nations were facing environmental collapse as their ocean worlds became polluted. Human environmental engineers had developed techniques for cleaning polluted water decades ago, but the aquatics refused to consider primitive human methods. Their beautiful underwater cities were slowly dying. Even more disturbing were the species that had simply given up. The tree shepherds had once been master terraformers, capable of turning dead worlds into garden paradises. But without human competition pushing them to improve, they had become lazy and complacent. They had not terraformed a new world in 30 years. It is like they lost the will to grow, Eugene said. Humans always pushed the boundaries, always tried new things. When we were forced to leave, the galaxy became stagnant. Commander Hierin Seo, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. So what you are telling us is that the galaxy is dying because it got rid of us. That is exactly what I am telling you, Eugene replied. Look at this. The main screen showed a graph of technological advancement across the galaxy. For thousands of years, the line had risen steadily upward. Then, 97 years ago, it had suddenly flattened. Since humanity's exile, there had been almost no new discoveries, no breakthrough technologies, no revolutionary ideas. Without humans stirring things up, they all became too comfortable, Admiral Kim said. They stopped taking risks. They stopped trying to solve difficult problems. They just maintained what they already had. And now what they had is falling apart. Sora added. Eugene nodded. Every major alien civilization is facing at least one crisis that threatens their survival. And in every case, the solution would be obvious to human scientists, engineers, or military strategists. But the aliens cannot see these solutions because they have trained themselves to think in only one way. She brought up a final display, this one showing communication intercepts from the current Galactic Council. The few remaining alien leaders were meeting constantly, trying to address the various crises, but their meetings had become exercises in futility. Yesterday's council session lasted 14 hours, Eugene said. They spent the entire time arguing about the proper procedure for forming a committee to study the possibility of creating a task force to examine the Rillan plague crisis. They never actually discussed the plague itself. Admiral Kim laughed bitterly. I remember those meetings. Even when humanity was part of the council, they could spend months debating the rules for debates. We used to joke that they could die of thirst while arguing about the proper way to ask for water. It is not funny anymore, Sora said. Billions of sentient beings are dying because their leaders are too rigid to adapt. Yujin pulled up one more piece of data. There is something else you need to see. Some of the younger alien leaders have been asking questions about humanity. They want to know what happened to us, whether we survived, whether we might be willing to help. And what do their elders tell them? That humans were a cancer that had to be removed for the good of the galaxy, that we were too dangerous to be allowed back, that the galaxy is better off without us. Commander Hyrin crossed her arms, so they would rather die than admit they made a mistake. Not all of them, Yujin said. I have intercepted private communications from several species. They are suffering badly, and some of their leaders are beginning to wonder if exile was the right choice. Admiral Kim was quiet for a long time, staring at the displays showing the galaxy's decline. Finally, he spoke. When I stood in that council chamber 97 years ago, I thought we were the ones being punished. I thought they were taking away our future. He looked up at the younger officers. I was wrong. They were not punishing us, they were punishing themselves. Sora nodded. The question now is, what do we do about it? We give them a choice, Admiral Kim said, the same choice they gave us, but in reverse. They can acknowledge their mistake and ask for our help, or they can face the consequences of their decision alone. And if they choose pride over survival, the old admiral's eyes grew hard. Then we will show them exactly why they were right, to fear us in the first place. But this time, we will not be asking for permission to exist. We will be offering them the chance to deserve our help. Yujin looked at the data one more time. Across the galaxy, ancient civilizations were crumbling because they had chosen order over chaos, comfort over growth, pride over adaptation. They had created the perfect, peaceful galaxy they always wanted. It was killing them. The time for humanity to return to the stars was coming. But this time, they would not be returning as refugees or supplicants. They would be returning as saviors, carrying solutions that the galaxy desperately needed but was too proud to ask for. The aliens had forced humanity to leave. Now humanity was about to show them the true cost of that decision. Begin Phase 2 of the intelligence operation, Admiral Kim ordered. I want to know everything about their current military capabilities, their supply lines, their political weaknesses. When we make our move, I want them to understand that we are not the same species they exiled nearly a century ago. Yes, sir. And if they try to stop us? Admiral Kim smiled grimly. Then they will learn that the humans they feared were nothing compared to the humans they created. Captain Minho Zhong checked his ship's stealth systems one more time before crossing into alien space. The ship Silent Arrow was no bigger than a large shuttle, but it contained technology that made it invisible to every scanner the aliens possessed. Beside him, Dr. Sujin Kwan prepared her medical equipment. She had spent the last 5 years developing treatments for the various plagues and diseases that were destroying alien civilizations. Today would be the first test of humanity's new approach to galactic relations. Captain, said the ship's communication. Officer, we are receiving a distress signal from the Rillan colony ship Peaceful Current. They are requesting immediate medical assistance. Minho looked at Sujin. Doctor? I can save them, she said simply. The question is whether we should. It was a fair question. The Rillans had been among the strongest supporters of humanity's exile. Their shape-shifting abilities had made them excellent spies, and they had used those skills to gather evidence of human aggression for the Galactic Council. Now their entire species was dying from a genetic plague. What are your orders from Earth? Sujin asked. Minho smiled. Help anyone who asks for it. No conditions. No payment required, no questions about the past. We are here to save lives. not to get revenge. The silent Arrow approached the Rillan colony ship, which was drifting dead in space. Minho's scanners showed hundreds of life signs aboard, but they were all growing weaker by the hour. Rillan vessel, this is Captain Minho Jong of the Earth ship Silent Arrow. We received your distress call and are prepared to offer medical assistance. The response came after a long delay. The Rillan voice sounded weak and confused. Earth ship? That is impossible. Humans are restricted to the Sol system. Not anymore, Minho replied. We have a doctor aboard who can treat your genetic plague. Will you allow us to dock? Another long pause. Then, how do we know this is not some kind of trick? Sujin took the communicator. Because your people are dying, and I can save them. You can spend time questioning my motives, or you can let me help. The choice is yours. 20 minutes later, Sujin was aboard the Rillan ship, working in their medical bay. The sight that greeted her was heartbreaking. Dozens of Rillans lay in medical beds, their gray skin cracked and bleeding. The genetic plague had destroyed their ability to shapeshift, and their bodies were literally falling apart. The Rillan chief medical officer, a female named Zurvel, watched suspiciously as Sujin set up her equipment. How do you know about our plague? Zurvel asked. This information was classified. We have been watching, Sujin replied honestly. We know about all the crises affecting the galaxy. We know you have been trying to find a cure for 7 years. And you think you can succeed where we have failed? Sujin loaded a vial of pale blue liquid into her injection device. I do not think. I know. I cured this plague 3 years ago in my laboratory on Earth. I have been waiting for a chance to test the treatment. Impossible. Our finest scientists... Your finest scientists have been approaching this as a genetic problem, Sujin interrupted. But it is not just genetic. The plague also affects your quantum cellular matrices. Your people think in terms of biology or physics, but never both at the same time. Humans learned long ago that the universe does not care about the boundaries between scientific disciplines. Sujin administered the treatment to the first patient, a young Rillan male who was barely conscious. Within minutes, his skin began to heal. Within an hour, he was sitting up and asking for food. Zurvel stared in amazement. How is this possible? Because humans have had 100 years to study your biology, Sujin replied. We know more about Rillan genetics than you do. We know more about Vorthak nutrition than they do. We know more about crystalline computer systems than they do. When you forced us to leave, you gave us time to become experts on every species in the galaxy. Word of the medical miracle spread quickly. Within days, other alien ships were approaching, human vessels asking for help. The proud crystalline hive sent a coded message requesting assistance with their computer virus. The dying tree shepherds asked for advice on environmental restoration. Each time, the human response was the same. Immediate help, no strings attached, no reminders of past grievances. Diplomat Ye-Wan Shin was handling the political side of humanity's return. Unlike the old human diplomats who had begged for acceptance, Ye-Wan spoke to aliens as equals, or perhaps as superiors who had chosen to help. The Vorthak Empire requests a meeting, her aide informed her. They want to discuss food production, agreements. Tell them I will meet with their representatives on the neutral station at Kepler 442b, Ye-Wan replied, and remind them that this is a humanitarian mission, not a trade negotiation. The meeting took place in a conference room that had not been used since before humanity's exile. 3 Vorthak officials sat across from Ye-Wan, their purple scales dull with malnutrition. We appreciate your assistance with our food crisis, the lead Vorthak said carefully. But we must ask, what do you want in return? Ye-Wan smiled. Nothing. Nothing? Nothing. Your people are starving. We can help you feed them. That is enough. The Vorthak officials looked confused. In their culture, every favor required payment. Every assistance came with obligations. But surely you have conditions, another Vorthak said. Trade agreements, territory rights, military alliances. No conditions, Yewan replied. We will teach your people how to improve their food production. We will share our agricultural techniques freely. We ask only that you use this knowledge to feed your population. Why? It was a simple question, but Yewan could see it contained a lifetime of confusion. These aliens had spent a century believing that humans were dangerous, aggressive, and selfish. Now humans were offering unlimited help with no payment required. Because it is the right thing to do, Yewan said. Because your people are dying, and we can save them. Because we are all part of the same galaxy, whether we like it or not. The lead Vorthak was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, We may have misjudged your species. Yes, Yewan agreed. You did, but that is in the past. What matters now is the future. Back in the Sol system, Admiral Sora Lim was coordinating humanity's return to the galaxy. Ships launched daily, carrying doctors, engineers, scientists, and diplomats to every corner of known space. Each ship carried the same message. Humanity was back, and they were here to help. But Sora also maintained a massive military fleet, hidden in the outer reaches of the Sol system. The aliens had not asked about human military capabilities, and Sora saw no reason to volunteer the information. Let them think that humans had spent a century focusing only on peaceful pursuits. Admiral, her intelligence officer reported, we are receiving requests for assistance from 47 different species. Agricultural advice, medical treatment, technical support, environmental restoration. They want help with everything. And their military response? Minimal. A few species have increased their border patrols, but most seem to view our ships as rescue vessels rather than threats. Sora nodded. The plan was working perfectly. By offering help instead of demanding recognition, humans were accomplishing something that a century of diplomacy had never achieved. They were making themselves indispensable. What about the old Galactic Council? She asked. Still meeting, still arguing. Some members want to welcome humanity back officially. Others insist that our exile should remain in effect. They have been debating the issue for 6 months now. Let them debate, Sora said. While they argue about whether to allow us back, we are already here, saving their civilizations and solving their problems. By the time they reach a decision, the galaxy will not be able to function without us. It was psychological warfare on a massive scale, but warfare conducted with medical supplies and agricultural knowledge instead of weapons. Every alien species that accepted human help became dependent on human expertise. Every problem that humans solved demonstrated the aliens' own inadequacy. The galaxy was learning what humanity had always known, that adaptation was more powerful than tradition, that innovation was more valuable than stability, that sometimes the best way to win was to help your enemies save themselves. As reports came in from across the galaxy, one pattern became clear. Wherever humans appeared, problems that had seemed impossible suddenly became manageable. Species that had been dying began to recover. Civilizations that had been stagnating began to grow again. The aliens had exiled humanity because they feared what humans might become. Now they were discovering what humans had become during their exile, the galaxy's best hope for survival. The return had begun, and this time humanity was not asking for permission. Ambassador Yewan Shin stood in the same chamber where Admiral Hyunwoo Kim had faced humanity's exile a century ago. But everything else had changed. The grand seats that once held confident alien leaders were now half empty. The species that remained looked tired, desperate, and afraid. The Vorthak Empire was gone, replaced by 3 smaller nations that barely controlled their own home systems. The Rillan Federation had collapsed completely, its survivors scattered across refugee camps on dozens of worlds. Even the mighty crystalline hive had split into competing factions that could no longer share information effectively. Honored representatives, Yewan began, her voice carrying easily through the much smaller chamber. "I come before you today not as a supplicant, but as a partner." In the highest tier of seats, Fleet Admiral Sora Lim watched the proceedings with cold satisfaction. Beside her sat Director Tae-hyun Bae, whose quantum communication networks now connected every human ship in the galaxy. Behind them, dozens of human officials observed the meeting that would reshape galactic civilization. The current council chairman, a nervous tree shepherd named Bark of Wisdom, spoke in a shaking voice. "Ambassador Shin, the Galactic Council, recognizes that circumstances have changed since our last formal contact with humanity." "Indeed they have," Yewan replied. 100 years ago, you told us we were too dangerous for civilized space. You said we brought chaos to your orderly galaxy. You said we would consume everything in our path." Uncomfortable shifting sounds came from the alien delegates. Several would not meet Yewan's eyes. "You were not entirely wrong," she continued. "We are dangerous. We do bring chaos. We do consume everything in our path. But you misunderstood what we consume. We consume problems. We devour stagnation. We feast on the impossible challenges that you have been avoiding for decades." A Rillan survivor named Tel Moore spoke up weakly. "Your people have saved millions of lives across the galaxy. We are grateful for your assistance." "Gratitude is not what we seek," Yewan said. "We seek understanding. You exiled us because you feared we would change your galaxy. You were absolutely correct. We have changed it. We have made it healthier, more dynamic, more capable of growth. The question now is whether you will work with us to continue that change, or whether you will try to return to the old ways that were slowly killing you." From the communications center, reports continued to stream in. Human agricultural specialists had increased food production on Vorthak worlds by 400%. Human doctors had developed treatments for 17 different alien diseases that had been considered incurable. Human engineers had solved environmental crises on 36 different worlds. But perhaps most importantly, human military advisors had helped several species defend themselves against pirates and raiders who had taken advantage of the galactic government's collapse. The galaxy was not just being healed, it was being protected. "What exactly are you proposing?" asked a delegate from the aquatic nations. Yewan activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy as it existed today. Red zones marked areas of conflict, disease, or environmental collapse. Blue zones showed regions where human assistance had restored stability and growth. "We propose a new galactic compact," she said. "Not a government that rules through committee and bureaucracy, but a cooperative alliance that responds quickly to crisis and embraces innovation over tradition." The display changed, showing a new organizational structure. Instead of the old council's rigid hierarchy, the new system was based on specialization and merit. Species would contribute what they did best: crystalline computational power, tree shepherd environmental expertise, aquatic mineral extraction, and human problem-solving and adaptation. Under this system, Yewan explained, no single species would have the power to exile another. Decisions would be based on results, not politics. Species that contributed solutions would have more influence than species that only contributed problems. Bark of Wisdom spoke hesitantly. "And if we refuse this proposal?" Admiral Sora Lim stood up for the first time during the meeting. When she spoke, her voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who commanded the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Then you refuse," she said simply. "Humanity will continue to help those who ask for it. We will continue to solve the problems that threaten galactic civilization. We will continue to grow stronger while others grow weaker. The difference is that we will do it without your input or cooperation." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Humanity no longer needed permission to exist in the galaxy. They had the technology, the resources, and the allies to do whatever they chose. The aliens could either work with them or be left behind. "You are saying we have no choice," Telmore said bitterly. "You have the same choice you gave us a century ago," Yewan replied. "Adapt or face the consequences. The difference is that when you forced us to adapt, it made us stronger. If you choose not to adapt now, it will make you extinct." Director Tae-hyun Bae activated another display, this one showing projected galactic development over the next century. One projection showed steady growth and expansion under the new compact. The other showed continued decline and collapse under the old system. "Your current governmental structure cannot solve the problems facing the galaxy," he said. "It takes you years to make decisions that require immediate action. Your committees debate while people die. Your bureaucracies prioritize procedure over results." "And you think humanity can do better?" asked an aquatic delegate. "We do not think," Admiral Sora replied. "We know. We have been doing better for the past 2 years. Every species that has accepted human assistance has seen immediate improvement in their situation. Every species that has refused human help has continued to decline." The chamber fell silent as the aliens absorbed this information. They were facing a choice between their traditional ways and survival itself. Finally, Bark of Wisdom spoke. "What guarantees do we have that humanity will not abuse this new position of influence?" Yewan smiled. "The same guarantee you had a century ago when you held all the power. None. You will have to trust us just as we had to trust you. The difference is that we have spent the last 2 years proving that we use power to help rather than to hurt. And if you change, if you become the aggressive conquerors we always feared, then you will do what we did," Admiral Sora said. "You will adapt. You will find ways to check our power and hold us accountable. You will become strong enough to be our equals rather than our subjects. We welcome that challenge. Stagnation is death, and we have no intention of becoming stagnant." The voting process took 3 days. Species that had been saved by human intervention voted yes immediately. Others required more persuasion. A few holdouts voted no and chose to leave the chamber entirely. In the end, the new Galactic Compact was approved by 73% of the remaining species. The old Galactic Council was officially dissolved, replaced by a more flexible system that valued results over procedure. As the delegates filed out, Yewan remained in the chamber with her human colleagues. The place where humanity had been humiliated. A century ago was now the birthplace of a new galactic order. "Do you think they will really accept us as equals?" asked one of her aides. "They do not have to accept us," Yewan replied. "We are not asking for acceptance. We are demanding respect, and we have earned it." Admiral Sora looked at the empty chamber thoughtfully. "My grandfather always said that the best revenge is to live well. I think he would be proud to see what we have accomplished." "This is not revenge," Yewan corrected. "This is justice. The galaxy tried to dispose of us because we were inconvenient. Now they have learned that some problems cannot be disposed of. They can only be solved." Outside the chamber, human ships continued their work across the galaxy. They carried doctors to plague-stricken worlds, engineers to failing colonies, teachers to struggling civilizations. They did not come as conquerors but as partners, offering solutions to problems that had seemed unsolvable. The aliens had forced humanity to leave because they feared what humans might become. In the end, they were right to be afraid. Humans had become the one thing the galaxy could not survive without, the species willing to do whatever it took to solve impossible problems. The galaxy was learning a lesson that humanity had always known, that chaos and order were not enemies, but partners. That growth required change, and change required the courage to abandon comfortable failures for uncertain possibilities. 100 years ago, the aliens had thought they were protecting their perfect galaxy from human corruption. Instead, they had given humanity the time and motivation to become the galaxy's salvation. The humans had been forced to leave. Now they had returned, not as refugees or conquerors, but as the leaders the galaxy had always needed but had been too afraid to accept. The reckoning was complete, and humanity had won not through force or cunning, but by becoming exactly what the galaxy feared, the one species that refused to accept that any problem was unsolvable. The age of committees and bureaucracy was over. The age of action and adaptation had begun. And at its center stood humanity, no longer asking for permission to exist among the stars, but leading the way toward a future that even they could not yet imagine.